moment as well. Sorry.
I think Katee could be so much stronger. Katee, you could be so much like more powerful if you just like change like 2 things. And like Jube above me was like,
so here's the thing,
dude,
right?
like I agree with, I feel like I could get Jube on that last 5% ideologically.
Here's the thing, right? Because like,
real quick though, just to finish, Jube is crushing the position, the statement of position. You see that guy with that kind of vibe on the screen, and you're like, yeah, he looks easygoing. I could agree with him. Like he's 100% he's 100% on his messaging, and I'm 5% like arguing.
Yeah, he seems pretty easygoing.
That's it.
Yeah, I just like here's the thing. I have a lot of people come up to me and they're like, I just have 2 things. I think you'd be so much better with these 2 things. And no one has the same 2 things. Like even like a few months ago, I'd get a lot of "you're condescending," and then I'd be like, in what way specifically? Because I'd want to know, right? And every single person's description of what they didn't like about my behavior was different. So like, I'll hear out your 2 things, right? Like I think you're like not there to insult me, but at the end of the day, like, if I had a nickel for every person who came to me and be like, I just have like a quick couple notes, and it's never the same notes, right? So I'm trying to find some common base, but it's just more like some people don't like my personality, some people don't like my take, some people don't like my laugh, some people don't like my voice. You know, it's really hard to get like an aggregate of like something 100%. Substantial that I can change.
Which is why you talk to other content creators.
Katee. I'm gonna dip into our DMs. I sent you one DM on December 26th, the day after Christmas 2021. You were on Prime Kai's debate, and I said, really loved your takes and input on the panel! ! Haven't seen you on before, but more 3 exclamation points. And you said, I appreciate it, thank you. That was our only interaction.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It really was a bother, by the way, about the fact that and to me, we didn't move so much of a conversational dial because so much of the time was spent on a definition. And I think that those things are detrimental to any discourse.
That happens so much on these.
It's like
I'll tell you what the issue is,
talking
though.
about what is truth, right? They just like got lost on it for 2 hours and couldn't.
But it was really frustrating with Tom because Tom was acknowledging that like language matters in what context is being used and what company you're in. And then he was the only one for 2 hours who demanded that everyone conformed to what he thought was like the normative stance on like a piece of language when like the entire panel was communicating 100%. Differently. It was fucking insufferable. And then like and because of that, and like it's very frustrating, and this is why I got so upset with Tom towards the end, because some people might not believe me, I don't like conflict. I like smoothing things over. So I would absolutely, and I've been told this, that I bite too much rhetorical bullets, and it's because I rather conform to someone else's definition and work with it to make my point than to argue about a definition for an hour. But because Tom wasn't willing to reciprocate that respect, I just kind of got deadlocked with him because I'm like, I can communicate with the language that you want me to communicate, but you're not respecting the language that I'm communicating with, even though you understand what I'm communicating. So it was very frustrating. It's very frustrating when I feel like I try to build a bridge by being like, hey, I don't agree with your definition, but I can work with your definition to reach understanding, and people don't do the same.
I'm going to tell you exactly why. And I'm not certain because I'm not in his brain, but I'm like 90% certain, and you can go watch any debate he has. It's because he's going to hear what you say, and then he's going to be like, yeah, we agree, and then he's going to give his definition and start moving on again.
Who's the guy with the radio voice talking? Your voice is fucking amazing. Oh my God.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, yeah, like every time I see him like disagree with
guy
something.
on the panel.
Really? I swear.
You piece of shit. I love your voice. Oh, you garbage bird.
I thought
I feel like I missed the line.
Great voice.
Yeah, but it's very easy to deal with Tom. You just placate to him and you assert when you can.
So what Katee's talking about, here's the problem with like talking politics online. Here's the problem. I know Ozzy's takes on things, and I went over the top with my just like trashing on him because the conversation was getting boring, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go over the top with it. if Ozzy lived in my building or neighborhood and I saw him, if we saw each other at the bar and I didn't know his politics, we would probably sit down at the bar sometime and have a wonderful conversation. We'd just be like normal, like, hey, what's up, man? Hey, what's up? And the fact, but like if like we went to the bar now, he'd be like, just me saying that, he'd be like, I don't want to fucking have a beer with you. You know what I mean? Like, so like we've already got that kind of thing going on. But like literally just like, if I saw him in person without knowing his politics, like he's not saying anything horrible out front in like a normal social like thing. But like, you know, but I've seen his trash views for 2 years and he's No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Agree to disagree, and we're gonna move on. All right,
I'm gonna
like
give Katee a,
Yeah,
I'm gonna give Katee a
I'm
cocktail.
gonna tell you.
Here
I'm
go,
gonna
Katee,
tell
have a
you what the
cocktail.
thing is. I have a really bad name at this point, and a lot of people really dislike me in this space. And like, there are certain narratives about my behavior, about the way that I engage, like rhetorically. And like, I do think Tom is fair, and Tom has been like exceptionally kind to me, and I appreciate that. But that's why I get very, I guess, defensive when people like lean into those like negative narratives about me. You know, so when Tom creates this thing there, he's like pointing out holes in my logic, and I'm like, 3 people on this panel agree with me, or at least don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So, and I'm quite an insecure person. So if I'm arguing with someone one-on-one and they're telling me that I'm wrong, I'm very likely to think, well, maybe I am wrong. So like doubling down on things, it's kind of like, it was difficult for me to just be like, okay, Tom, agree to disagree, when it feels like there's already so much shit that I get. And then like to have someone with an audience that is big and already doesn't like me to like further like those narratives. And I know Tom doesn't think I'm stupid or anything. So it was very frustrating that he was not. And he was saying that he understood what I was saying, but he clearly wasn't, because like...
No, he understood it. No, because I had the same perception that you aren't willing to deal in the value that other people are dealing in. And you're saying that it's useless. So by that, you are now, this is in the shift or the impasse between your paradigm and his. So,
but that was the frustrating thing, right?
It's not him disrespecting you. He's saying you're not dealing in the majority reality, which is
no. But here's the thing, Ozzy. I was dealing with that the entire panel, and then when I was saying, hey guys, I am engaging with your paradigm, but you should know that according to my paradigm, this is fake. Right? Like, I don't buy this according to my paradigm, but I'll work with your paradigm. And then Tom goes like, wait, you can't do that. And he is asking me about my paradigm, right? And then he says, well, your paradigm is irrelevant. Your paradigm like doesn't make like logical sense. And he's asking me to make definitions.
He said that verbatim?
No, he was saying that he was saying logic, but he was also tying morality to it based on his argument. He was doing the Tim Pool thing, which is why I thought like he was like a Tim Pool like right wing like knockoff. Like,
he's saying you can. He was basically saying you can speak however you want to, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be based in, like he said, the reality. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things where
that's a contentious spot.
And the reality was just him saying in the very beginning, where he's saying where he was doing the practice of us trying to acclimate to his use of language, where he's saying you guys aren't using. If you can't use language the way everybody uses language, then we can't have a conversation. That's him saying that he aligns himself to the majority perspective. Well,
what he thinks is the majority perspective, because he also thinks the majority perspective is that women are fine being told they have masculine traits.
But what he thinks matters, because you're not arguing the majority, you're arguing him.
No, he's
so what he
phrasing
thinks
it as
matters.
a yes or no. Like he takes whatever she's talking about and says. I feel like this is painfully obvious.
I'm not arguing Katie's side. I'm arguing Katee. I'm not arguing the collective of the legion of Katies. I'm just arguing Katee. Okay.
The Legion Circus.
It's a Legion?
There's like
Know what I
3
did
of us,
there?
I swear.
Yeah. So
No, but
I'm
just to
just
say, like, I understand your point, and then to like give another example to bring up the football fucking analogy after saying I understand 5 times. When the football analogy was fucking trash the first time, he's looking
Well, I
for that
argue with him.
binary ones and zero, yes or no answer, while saying I understand your point. He's literally projecting to his audience. I understand the nuance of this discussion, but here's the thing that's going to frame it, and I'm going to funnel you into a yes or no answer. And every time that Katee fought back on that, without whether she acknowledged or realized it or not, whenever she felt it because she pushed back, she would not agree to his yes or no premises. And every time that happened, he would get upset. The fucking name the fucking 10-book dipshit fucking loser in chat was like, yeah, get her, Tom. Like,
okay, but before we move on, can you tell me what was his question on the football topic? What was his question based around football?
Wow.
That's the issue.
Let me watch that video again.
Do you want me to explain what
this was literally when I came into the.
If
you're asking me literally, though,
a little bit.
Yeah, I can too.
Wait, don't steel man it. Don't steel man it.
And I know I can because I argued with Tom over the same.
From your heart.
I argued with Tom over the same.
it.
Yeah,
but the issue is the language that he used to describe it was almost insane. Like
no, but I understood what he was saying.
No,
it just wasn't a reaction to what I was saying.
Who was this talking? Was that E?
Katee, you don't realize it. You and Tom were doing the very same thing, as in you guys were unwilling to cede ground on your position.
Come on, no,
and you were
don't do that
trying to
both
make
shit.
me.
Come on,
no, it's no both sides thing.
Do
the both sides thing. I'm saying
fucking Pepsi Zero fascist bullshit. Don't do that bullshit.
I have ceded ground for the entire 3 hours of the conversation.
Don't do that.
I have ceded ground for the entire 3 hours of the conversation, and then one time when I asked you a question, I virtue signaled and say, although I don't think gender is even a thing, and then Tom wanted to nail me to the cross on that. I have ceded ground the entire fucking
with his
time.
binary framing. And when I say binary, I'm not talking like I wasn't talking sexual when I say binary. I'm saying ones and zeros.
Yeah, if I can quickly throw a point onto that, I think, and I've seen him do this with other conversations, or when he was reacting to, was it on Tim Pool, or it was something super recent where it was like, no, we don't even get to talk about that part of the conversation if we haven't established this first kind of fundamental thing. Like, you can't get to that next part. I'm forgetting what it was. It was someone, I think, trying to just, no, it was the leaks with Carissa and shit. It was like, wait, no, we can't get to the, thank you. It was the, like, we can't get to like why you're or we can't justify it without saying why the fuck, whatever. I'm misquoting it, but you get what I'm saying. It was basically like you can't get to C without passing through A and B first. And I think what his issue was, if fundamentally there's enough of a disagreement, I guess with gender was the term in that ending part there.
I think
right, but his
but Jude,
like talking.
But what was his question?
Redolin, let me.
Tom is trying to say.
Oh my god!
I jumped in before you jumped in. I'm giving a quick point. I'm from
But
New
you
England.
do it all the time. Oh my god! See some ground. God damn you!
This is the Legion.
To what you've said. To what you've said. Real quick.
No! Shut the fuck up! No! Me first.
Social
Okay,
compliance
you go
either
ahead.
male
All right, you
or
got it.
female.
Here's like, thank you. Yes, I win. I'm masculine. I'm the masculine one. Okay.
So it's like a two-step process.
Here's the thing. When I talk, again, I'm very comfortable using other people's frame of reference. And because a lot of people don't do that, people assume that me doing that is somehow like, when I then say, hey, I'm working with your frame of reference, but you should know this isn't my own personal position. I'm just working with your framework. They're kind of like, kind of shocked and confused because that's not how most people operate. So they either think it's like a bad faith thing or that it's like, oh, so you've been leading me on the entire conversation when you don't even believe this. And it's like, I've stated my position at the beginning for the sake of expediting the conversation, I'll work with your framework. But then when I sometimes remind them that like, you should know this is, I don't actually agree with the initial premise, then they feel like betrayed because they'd never agree to the initial premise. And I don't mind working in hypotheticals, like I don't mind saying, okay, if gender was real, what would that look like? I'm fine arguing about that.
Okay.
Well, by the time I got your 14-inch cock out of my mouth, I forgot my point to Jupe.
When you
that's why I was trying to jump in, because I was like, it's a quick interjectional point, and I forget. Fuck.
Vibing.
The words don't matter what people say with, oh, I'm this, but then like whatever their actual policies, they actually back up with words. That's the more important thing. So when someone says, oh, I'm a slightly centrist lefty, this thing and both, it doesn't matter. When they fucking advocate for like the ending of trans people, for example, you're like, I see where you are on the spectrum, like that kind of shit. So like when people are like, oh, I'm like this and this, like that's Tim Pool's whole grift is far right-wing ideology saying I'm a milquetoast
liberal.
I love Tim Pool.
Use the N-bomb. They think it's funny.
And honestly, like I'm not kidding. Like I've never seen Tom before in my life. I literally got recommended this on YouTube because I think Aaron was in the chat and we're friends on Discord. And I was like, oh, what's this? I'll see what Aaron's doing. And that's the only and I was like, who's this guy with a hat who's doing like a poor imitation of Tim Pool? Like he was like. He was literally just like he's literally doing a poor imitation of Tim Pool, and the words don't matter.
Like don't do Tom like that.
Tom will at least
but Tom will at least own. No, the thing is, Tom will own being conservative. Tom will. No, if you ask him, he'll call himself a conservative that is socially progressive. He will at least own being conservative. The thing I don't like about Tim Pool is the fact that he'll be like, I'm just a disaffected liberal.
Listen to the words that just came out of your mouth. Tim Pool says the exact same thing.
No, he doesn't.
He does not say he's conservative. He says he's a disaffected liberal.
He's actually a milquetoast fence sitter.
He says he's a liberal.
No, I know
this. He calls himself a liberal.
He says he's a libertarian.
So what he does is he'll say things like, I am for birth control. But he's like, I'm for women's choice. But then when you actually talk to him about the actual policies with context, it turns out Tim Pool's literally just like, I think abortion is terrible. It's morally wrong. People shouldn't do it. But like, if he does these extreme cases, and you're like, okay, dude, like it's just a bullshit grift. That like the words he's saying don't matter because when you push like his feet to the fire, Tom does the exact same thing.
No, he's said his pro-life stance before. Like I've heard his pro-life stance before.
I don't care about his one pro-life stance. It's the whole package of the thing.
But no, you're saying it like
you're a conservative. It doesn't.
No, but not even that. You're saying it like he doesn't own his position. It's not a grift if you. To me, it's not a grift if you're owning your position. Like the reason I don't like Tim Pool is because he's lying to people.
Does Jimmy Dore call himself a lefty or a righty? Does Jimmy Dore call himself a lefty or a righty?
He calls himself a lefty.
Of course he does. But the words that actually come out, the policies he backs are far right. While he says,
Tom does not call himself a lefty. Tom calls himself a righty.
Okay. Tom will tell you himself.
I cannot listen.
Welcome back, Tom.
Okay.
Have you been listening this whole time?
Yeah, he's
I have
in
been
my
listening this entire time. Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
So I'm trying to back you up. I'm trying to defend you, Tom.
I appreciate it. Yes. So I'm not a conservative. I call myself a right-wing progressive. It's meant to just say that I don't fit in.
Let's go.
And yes, it doesn't mean anything. I don't fit in anywhere. I don't fit in anywhere. I am pro-life, but I'm also like super far left on trans issues. I'm considered insanely progressive on gendered issues. I'm considered
because it didn't sound like you were progressive on those issues when you were.
You don't understand my position.
You are in like a bubble.
You literally don't understand my position.
Redolin, you don't understand. These people come from a liberal lens. They are doing the everything left of like center Democrat is left. Okay, for Tom, since he was like a rightoid, like conservative, for him he's super progressive on gender issues.
Oh, I know.
That doesn't mean he's actually progressive.
I'm way ahead of the game.
It's code. It's liberal code. Like everything that's happening.
Hold on. Okay, so listen. Earlier you were saying that I was moralizing the gender thing, which is just a lie. That I never at any point moralized it whatsoever. What I was saying is that there is a definition that I use. You guys kept making it about biology. I kept saying, hold on.
Where'd your definition come from?
Oh, okay, so I work in linguistics.
Because it ignored science and people are specialists.
No, it doesn't. Okay, I work in linguistics. Definitions, we come to definitions based on colloquial usages. Okay, gender is a word that we use to describe masculinity and femininity. And so with masculinity and femininity, those are words that we use to describe what is more likely from a male or what is more likely from a female, or just what we generally associate with it, like social what do you call it? Like social norms. I have papers on this. I have videos that are used in colleges and in universities. Like gender is my specialty.
I would love to see them and read them.
I can send them to you. Yes, I can send it to you. I like this
Send
is
them
my
to me.
this is what I focus on.
I read
so
and talk to professors who deal with this shit. Like, I'd love to read the papers that you're
Are
talking about because it sounds like fucking garbage.
Are all professional? Oh, excuse me. I don't know why my is so tight. Are all professors going to agree? Are all educated opinions going to align?
No.
So the thing that they will agree on, yes, the thing that they will agree on is
It's
they
totally
will
true,
agree
Ozzy,
on the
you
process.
religious fundamentalist.
Yes, it is. They will agree that there is a process to come to definitions. That they will all agree that there is a process to come to definitions on words, and I am using the process that we use to come to definitions on words.
Yeah,
that is what we will all agree on.
Agree on that.
At what point though does that clinical use become an obstruction to the actual discourse? Though.
So Tom, have you read
when you
Ludwig
refuse
Wittgenstein?
Yes, when you refuse to add in context, that's when it will become an obstruction. Is when you refuse to allow context to change what a word means. So
I agree with you on.
You will always use the same process to come to a definition, but the definition will change based on context, and like in colloquial usage can even change based on what is colloquial, right? Like different areas have different meanings and different norms. Anyways, so the thing is that I like everything that I said is scientific. Everything that I'm saying is linguistic. Everything that I'm saying is the process that we use.
It's not.
To come...
You're literally
okay,
ignoring science, and then everything you said.
Wait, I didn't say anything about science.
So you
I
just
didn't say anything about
I
science.
am super into science. You saying I'm super into science, I fucking read science, and everything I said was scientifically correct is immediately fucking wrong.
I didn't say this. You are already making stuff up. I did not say this.
You literally just said that.
No, I did not. I said linguistically. I am talking about linguistic processes that we use to come to definitions. I didn't say anything about science.
You just said,
it's based in science.
Oh my God.
You know, the science of linguistics.
No,
I didn't. Based in science. You just did, dude.
Okay,
right?
If I said based in science, I don't think I said that. But if I said based in science,
and then I called it out, and you're like, I didn't say that. You exactly said that.
I don't think I said that because my issue the entire panel was that
do. You people. What do you mean, you people? This is what you do.
My issue the entire panel is that this guy kept making up stuff for my positions where he kept arguing against things that I wasn't saying, right? So I at no point was actually saying that biology attaches to gender or that it's part of my definition. And I said it over and over, is that biology has nothing to do with my definition of gender. Like it has literally nothing to do with it. It's not like attached to it. It's not the thing. And that if we all agreed, if it actually turned out that that literally nothing that is masculine is more likely because of biology, my definition for gender still wouldn't change because the colloquial usage wouldn't change. And so it is all the same.
Masculine and biology has tied those two things together to go against what you just said you were not advocating for.
When?
This is what I'm arguing about.
When?
He's
when?
using the social constructionist definition of masculinity and femininity, not the biological.
Yes, biology, I kept saying that biology might make something more likely, but that doesn't change whether or not it's masculine or feminine. Masculinity and femininity are based on the definition, not whether or not it's biological.
And do you agree that those definitions? Yeah, this all makes sense. I'm just trying to get him on his like little like words adding weight to what he's saying, which is like bullshit. Do you agree that those definitions of masculine, feminine do not tie to anything biological? Because you guys had this whole long discussion with Katee earlier about like, you know, masculine women, feminine like men. Like it doesn't matter. Like these are just like descriptors, and they don't actually tie to anything. Like being like feminine doesn't mean that you. Like if you're a man, like, oh, you're a woman, like those two things are like completely separate things. And every time you tried to like finagle things, you would like try to tie both of them together. You were trying to get biological and societal together at the same time, any chance you could get. And it happened over and over again.
I wasn't. Yeah, okay, so what is the definition of masculine?
See, here we go. Here we go. We're gonna go with a simple definition, and then you're going to attack.
It doesn't have to be simple. Like no, I'm trying to understand how you are confusing what I'm saying so much. So I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. What is your definition? How about this? Of masculine?
You describe masculine. Go. Let's go. Let's hear it from the mouth.
I said it is masculinity. I believe is something that is more
tie it to
likely
biological.
Stop talking.
Don't tie it to biological.
Let him talk.
Hold on. It's not tied to biological.
You were about to say biological, and I cut you off.
He wasn't. He's going to say that it's what men
That's
do.
a trap. Keep going, Tom.
If you didn't
Keep
cut
going.
him off, you'd know if he was going to say that or not.
No. The cutting off is a trap. Don't fall for it, Tom. Keep going.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
right.
So
Don't fall
if
for
we
my-
go
don't
look
fall
up
for
the
my smarts.
definition,
Come on, Tom, let's go.
If we go look up the definition in any dictionary, it'll say it is something that is associated with males. That is what masculine means in literally any dictionary. It is something associated with males.
Well, let me see. I'm going to go look it up right now. Let me go look up what Webster.
Bye, Aaron.
First of all,
Webster says.
Men or boys.
First of all, we said men, not males, and male is a biological term.
Right. You said men. I said males. I was saying that a man is somebody who is masculine. So like a trans person is somebody who is putting on like a masculine, is somebody who is masculine, right? That's why they have dysphoria, is because they are a masculine person. And so a trans man is somebody who is masculine. That's why we call them a man. So when we say like trans men are men, we're saying that like, yes, they are somebody who is masculine. They actually are a man.
In your opinion, yeah.
Yes, but I'm saying based on the definitions, yes, like that is how we use the words.
I don't really get the in your opinion clarification, but it's fine.
It's because
it's called nuance.
Tom.
Yeah, but it's useless.
It's not useless because Tom claims that he has like
with women, and then you can get into the whole discussion of what men and women
Tom
are
is
based
not
on that
saying
definition.
this is the overall
a gender that refers chiefly
universal
but not exclusively. Here's the
definition.
main definition: masculine, a gender that refers chiefly but not exclusively to males or to objects classified as male.
It's a truism. Tom is not saying.
They even put it in the main definition, not exclusively. They put it in the definition.
I'm pretty sure
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that it's just associated with it.
Pretty sure that's what he said multiple times.
Yes.
That quite regularly.
I'm saying it is just something that is associated with it. It is not like inherent to that thing. It is not biological. It is just something that we associate with men.
So argue past that point then.
What do you mean?
Argue past that point?
Whatever your point is on that definition, where you're happy with that definition, continue your point and argument on the thing we've been talking about, that you guys were talking about like hours before I came into this discussion.
Well, so I asked you for a definition, then you asked me to give one instead. So I gave one, and I don't know where to go from there because you seem to have a disagreement with what I'm saying, but I don't know what the disagreement is.
I can continue us. So this has been the definition that you have given me the entire time. And I told you that I reject the concept of gender in totality. And you said that doesn't make any sense. And I have logic flaws, even though now you're saying that it's associated to males. So you don't even have gender in your definition anymore. So I don't understand.
Wait, wait. No, hold on. Gender was never in the definition.
Never
masculinity. Yes, masculinity and femininity are gender, but they're not in the definition. So, like when we talk about gender, we're talking about
and I
masculinity.
told you I don't think masculinity and femininity are gender, right?
Right. Okay. So if we go look up the definition of gender, and it talks about social norms that are going to be
of grammatical gender, a gender that refers to masculine, associated with men and not with women.
Yes. Right. So if we look up the word gender, it says the male sex, the male sex or female sex, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones. So that is what femininity and masculinity are. These are like social references to what a male or what a male does or what we associate with a male or a female, right? So it is not something biological. These are just things that we associate with males and females.
With males and females? You said socially.
Yes, we socially associate them with males and females.
But
so like carrying a purse.
So that's
right,
you trying
exactly.
to tie gender
so like
and biology together.
That I'm saying that this is, yes, that's the definition, is that like so carrying a purse is something we consider feminine only because women are more likely to do it, not because carrying a purse is a biological thing, but only because females carry purses.
Okay, Tom, how would you feel if I said that the way that you're using this definition is really disingenuous?
What?
I would say that you would have to say the same thing about everybody, every dictionary as well.
Yeah, the same way that I say that conservatives are disingenuous when they do the "what is a woman" thing. A woman is a adult female. Yeah, that's what I would say, right? So as far as I understand, I don't know if they changed it, but let me just Google that for a second. So here, homosexual, they changed the definition to sexually or romantically attracted exclusively to people of one's own sex or gender. In some dictionaries, homosexual just means a man who's attracted to other men. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And as we have new sociological concepts, we understand the dictionary definitions take time to update. So just because you are using a certain like definition. So I'm arguing there are three things. There are sex, there's gender, and there's femininity and masculinity. And you're saying gender and femininity and masculinity are the same thing. Here's a definition for it. And I'm saying sociologically, I don't feel like this is true. And I feel like your definition is disingenuous for doing that. Because you're not engaging with my point that they're separate, because you're saying definitionally they are not separate.
Yes, but you're not actually giving a reason for why they're separate. So when I'm looking at this definition, this is the updated definition. Like before, gender was just male and female, right? Now it's the male
norms in.
Yes, it's the male sex or female sex, especially when considered with references to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones. This is the updated version that actually adjusts to what it is that we would like when we add in like trans women and trans men. This one it considers them as well.
Tom, what is your
which is why I
arguing through the trenches?
Hold on.
Like, what's your goal in all of your arguments about your definitions?
To have a conversation.
There isn't a goal. So when we're having like in order to
find like the villain's motive.
Yeah, so like when I talk to
Tom,
Katee,
can you send me the definition, please? Because that's not what I'm finding. So can you send me that?
Yeah, I'm sending it to you now. When we start talking about like having a prescription, and generally in order to have a prescription in a conversation, we first have to get the descriptive right. If we are wrong on the descriptive, we're going to be wrong on the prescriptive. So like with neo-Nazis,
the shape of society?
Yes. Of course.
Okay.
Why?
Okay, then that answers my question. You can keep going. That's good.
So so
you've answered my question. I know where you are politically.
Okay, so when we when we start to use things that like exclude trans people or like otherize them, like things like gender isn't real, your whole your whole like dysphoric thing that you're just kind of experiencing and you think is very real and very biological, like that's just a thing that everybody just made up to make you feel bad now. Like, yeah, I think that these like highly otherized trans people, and it seems to be problematic for them. It seems to cause more dysphoria for them.
Tom,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't understand. True. First of all, the definition you send me is for gender. And that doesn't have to do with proving that gender is equivalent to like masculinity or femininity. No, secondly,
also, it doesn't prove anything about the
send her the definition of masculinity.
I get some water because there's 1,000 degrees in my computer room, but keep going.
Send her the definition of masculinity and femininity that you just read before as well.
Yeah, because that's what we're gonna. When you look up masculinity and femininity, it's going to tell you that they are, it says qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men or boys.
Yes, that's what I meant when I said that's not updated, right?
You said gender, but if you wanted to
I apologize. I'm talking about the fact that you continue to claim that those are the same things, and I'm arguing that I'm treating the three as like separate. And like we haven't even got to the point of me establishing it, because every time I do that, you just say that I'm wrong because I'm definitionally wrong.
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding here that I'm just going to attempt, if possible, to clarify, and whatever, tell me to fuck off afterwards. But Katee, you mentioned the three things to separate, which was sex,
gender, and feminine,
masculinity / femininity. Right. So I think the thing that's happening here is that masculinity and femininity, again, forgive me using air quotes, but like by definition are kind of like the duality that the umbrella term gender encompasses, whereas I think what you're referring to when you refer to gender is the identity thing, which in, let's call it Tom's world or whatever, bubble or whatever the fuck it is, in his version of language, it's like gender is one thing, and then gender identity is the second thing, and then sex is the third thing. And I feel like if we can agree on at least giving 3 titles to the 3 concepts, then you can move to the next thing. I think
if you are correct, that means Tom is essentializing gender. That's my point.
Wait,
I don't like that he's doing that.
How is that essentializing?
Okay, if you agree with Jew that it's about like gender identity, and sex, then what is gender if not tied to sex?
So it again, if gender is masculinity and femininity, and masculinity and femininity are like the attributes that we associate with males and females, that is the way that it somehow ties back to like what males and females do, but it's not biological stuff. They're not like the things that they're doing are not biological.
Okay.
Carrying a purse is feminine, it's not biologically feminine.
So how do you contend with me saying things that are not biological to males and females are not gender? When you send me the definition of gender, Tom, please. When you send me the definition of gender, it says the male sex or female sex, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological one. Please explain to me what the fuck that means. Give me a single example of what that means.
So when we're talking about cultural norms that align with the male and female sex, we're talking about femininity and masculinity. These are things that we associate.
Norms out of your vocabulary and get rid of them.
Sex is biological. So
yes.
What do we mean when we say that we tie something to sex socially?
Okay, so if let's say
one by one, so that we're not making this sex is biological, and we're making these delineations between the terms. Can you just do one by one?
Yeah, well, so it's like I said before, like if females carry purses, that is going to be considered a feminine thing. But carrying a purse is not a biological thing. The female does it, and female is biological, but carrying a purse is not biological. It's just something that we associate with.
So what happens when a man carries a purse?
So, Tom, what you just did is what I have been demanding you do like this entire time. You just described a thing without bringing in gender into it because there's no utility.
I'm saying that is gender. That is gender.
Yes, you're just making up a word to describe something that you can describe without the word.
What?
You're saying, Tom, you're saying, here's something that females do. Here's something that females do, therefore it's feminine. What is gender or like woman has to do with this? If woman is not just exchangeable for female in this context.
No. No, because you keep saying this is the same.
Okay, no. I get what you're asking. I get what you're asking now.
Okay.
I get what you're asking now. Okay.
Hold up. Let him cook. Let him cook.
Let him do it again.
So, all right. So gender exists on a spectrum, right? So when we say it exists on a spectrum, we are saying that somebody is more or less masculine or more or less feminine, right? So we'll have like, generally they work off of some sort of stereotype or prototype. So think of like the most masculine person like Hulk Hogan, and then the most feminine person like...
Hulk Hogan's gay as fuck. What are you talking about?
Sure, but like a 50s style
professional
housewife,
wrestler
right?
for masculine.
So
Fuck yeah.
Please,
Let's go.
So there's like a spectrum there, and the more or less masculine or feminine traits, the more you're going to move on that spectrum of, and it's going to be based on masculine and feminine.
Tom,
traits.
wrestling is
so
basically
that's when we
drag.
say gender.
Come on, man.
Okay, I don't think drag is necessarily like I don't know why you're bringing that up. Is that bad? Do you not like drag?
I love that you went that way with
please.
your
I just
dumbass
want to
points.
understand
Jesus
this. Oh my
Christ, you went
God,
with
don't
Hulk
do
Hogan
this.
for your stupid dumb shit point.
Okay,
Katie, can you say? Okay, go ahead.
There's a spectrum, Tom. Okay, but okay, there's a spectrum. I know there is. What's your point?
Yeah.
That masculine and feminine traits are how you move on the spectrum. So like more or less masculine or feminine traits are how you move on the spectrum.
But you have described the spectrum to me without gender once. So I'm asking, what is the utility?
Okay, you keep saying I'm not describing gender, but I'm saying that is gender. So I don't know why you keep saying I'm not describing gender. If gender is masculinity and femininity, I am describing gender.
I can't understand sign language.
I appreciate that there was silence in that perfect moment while I was muted. All right, I think I might be able to walk us through this point real quick, and then
no, because if I'm not allowed to do it,
you are not going to get in the way of this man's clarity. You're going to stop and let this man speak. No,
I don't know why y'all speak. Jube, I know Jube got the radio voice, and he sounds amazing. And y'all just allow him to do everything.
This real quick. You give
he's very helpful. That's the issue.
We'll just go both.
But you keep following.
Which one I'm pointing to?
Yeah, but the thing is, Katie, how helpful is it if you keep running into the same misconception that stops you from understanding Tom's point? This is why I need.
I understand Tom's point.
This is why
it's not a misconception. It's him trying to argue.
I understand Tom's point.
Together.
Thank you.
He's trying to combine them the entire time.
But you say you understand it, but you're not actually describing what the difference. I'm sorry, I'm not talking to you. Okay,
he said go anyway. We're good.
Yeah. So each time you say it's not gender, and I'm saying when I say gender is masculinity and femininity, you are not delineating that in any way. You're just saying, but you're not describing gender, and I'm saying I am describing gender.
Every time I try to explain to you what I think the difference is, you fixate on how they're the same thing. I can explain, right?
Okay.
I can give an example. For example, when we talked and Kuro asked you, so the most feminine man ever, are they a woman? The correct answer is no, they're not. But you said yes.
Well, if it's based on femininity and masculinity, then yes, of course.
See, yeah, that's why that's wild to me, because it seems so very obvious that a woman could be extremely masculine and we would still call her a woman, or a man could be extremely feminine and we would still call them a man. Because
but the thing is, their form of masculinity.
And you know why that is?
I know why it is.
No, I wasn't talking to you.
Okay, I know what it is. I'm sure he does too. I hope. I pray. But
it's because they have a certain sex, so the concept of gender doesn't matter.
Even in the masculine woman, right? The masculine woman, in certain circumstances, in certain circles and contexts, we would still describe that as a spectrum of femininity.
Why?
Why? Because it is a woman.
What makes a woman?
I have a better way. I have a really
the question is what makes them a woman.
Could be
okay, so real quick, let me explain. We describe womanhood by femininity. So if I look at somebody and I decide whether or not I'm going to call them a man or a woman, I'm looking at a group of characteristics and then I'm grouping them as an overall concept. So when I look at a trans woman and I say a trans woman is a woman, I say that they're a woman because they are feminine. They have feminine characteristics. I'm not checking for a penis. I'm not checking for a vagina. I'm looking for feminine characteristics. That's what makes them a woman. That is gender.
So Tom, that's why when you say you're progressive on gender issues, people who are actually progressive don't believe you, because that is not a progressive view.
Hold on, no,
at all.
Clarify that, please. And substantiate it with an example.
I could do that,
engaging in femboy erasure, and we do not allow it.
I need you to do that because you haven't done that yet.
No, mine includes femboys.
I asked that last time before succulent. Yeah, I tried to get you to get to substantiate and give an example before, but then Redolent and Succulent or Saxon or whatever his name was came in and started interrupting. You never gave the example. Please give the example to show why he's not as progressive as progressives.
If you can open my stream real quick, I can give you a quick diagnostic of this on the super advanced tool.
Are we that deep in? We're using MS Paint?
That I call Paint. All right, so
notepad on one side.
I'm an enlightened centrist. I don't trust your take on this.
Good. You don't have to trust me. You can dispute it when I'm done. But
I'm all for it. I need Katie to give an example first because I've been waiting on this example for hours.
This line is female to me. This line is hold on.
Gender and then say female.
I don't care.
Oh my god.
Feminine, whatever. Okay.
What do you mean, whatever? This is the entire fucking point. I'll give you.
Katie, please
I don't care
explain
if you're
how
using the
you
wrong
think
term.
that's
Man,
not progressive.
female, male, woman.
What did he do to make them niggas that?
If male means one thing and female means another, I don't care. I'm just going with what works best in my brain to say. It could be man, woman. It could be male, female. It doesn't. I don't differentiate that like that. But
you're
anyway,
explaining a linguistic argument, but you're not going to use.
But we spiritually understand the point he is trying to make. This isn't the classroom with the English teacher who misspells the word on the board and all the kids start shouting, "Hey, you misspelled the word."
Literally, if we're talking about distinguishing sex, gender, and femininity, you need to know what the fuck you're talking about, Azzy.
Dave, do your thing. We know exactly what you mean. You misspoke a little. Go ahead.
This is femininity. This is masculinity. They can overlap. These are like, if you have X traits that are masculine, like we'll say 10. We'll say there's 10 traits.
It's not even going to have how many traits. It's just going to be based on like conceptually. It's not how many traits. It's not
I get that, but I'm just giving a quick example.
Okay.
You can have very few masculine traits, but still have been born a man or consider yourself a man. However you want to
male
term
or do you mean man?
Which way do you want me to mean it?
He means man.
I'm referring to gender. I'm not referring to biological sex right now. Because we're not talking about biological sex in any of this.
He used the word.
You're not talking about biological.
He used the word. He used the word man. He's talking about gender. Okay.
If he's talking about gender, why is he saying stuff like was born a man?
Because I don't know what the right way to say it is.
Oh, he is. Gender is like when we're saying that being masculine makes you a man, being feminine makes you a woman, he is using the correct terminology. So please continue.
Continue.
But we're arguing the terminology, Tom. This is so.
You need to throw all that away and allow him to finish so we can move forward. Placate.
No problem. You finish, and then I'll yell at you again for the exact same thing.
I don't care. This is a feminine woman. This is a masculine man. Anything in the middle, it still exists.
It's androgynous.
But it's androgynous. There's an androgynous zone. It doesn't have to be masculine or feminine. It can be anywhere in the middle.
The neutral zone.
Okay, but what happens when a man goes all the way to the end of the pink zone? Are they no longer a man?
They're still on this bar. So as long as they consider themselves a man, they're still a man, but they're a feminine man. They're not a woman.
Okay, so
they didn't
Katie,
cross bars.
When you say what I'm saying is not the progressive position, please explain.
What's wrong with my definition here?
Hold on.
Your definition is correct. As long as someone identifies as a certain gender, they are that gender no matter how feminine or masculine they are.
That doesn't mean anything. That means literally nothing. Identity means like very little. When other people are going to call you a man or a woman.
That you don't care, which is why, again, I'm genuinely confused.
No.
Why do
stop saying that.
That was a great presentation, Dave.
Okay, it has nothing to do with care. It has to do with the fact that other people will identify you as a man or a woman. They will see an overall concept. They will see somebody and they will immediately categorize you as either man or woman. They are categorizing you. You can identify yourself and you can have your own internal identity, but that doesn't mean other people categorize you as what your internal identity is.
Okay.
Those are different things.
So I genuinely feel like what you're arguing with me about is like, this is how people define it. And that's what you've always been defining. and that's great. That's not what I'm talking about, and that doesn't help us when I am trying to delineate like certain, like, the descriptive that you're making is, this is how people think about this. And I'm trying to make a descriptive of, like, this is how things are, independent of what people think about this.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I am saying this is how things are, independent of how people think about it. So I'm like, if you ask somebody what is a woman, they'll say a female. But when it comes time for them to point out what a woman is, they're not going to look at chromosomes. They're not going to look at gametes. They're not going to look at penises or vaginas.
They're going to look at presentation.
Yes, exactly. And so that is how they
presentation is not necessarily feminine or masculine.
Is my mic
that is how they are actually going to define it. That's how they're actually going to point out, meaning that is what they are communicating, is that thing when they use that
presentation. That doesn't yes. Women can present very masculine and still be identified as women. That's just like true.
Okay. When you say that, you go against what you just said a second ago. So when we're talking about what it is, hold on. When you say I'm describing what reality is, you can't both say this is what they will say this is, and that's not what it is. It can't be both of those things. So either you are not describing reality, or you are describing reality. It's one of the.
Okay, this is why I bring up the femboy example, because it's like if someone looks at a femboy and sees them and is like, "Oh, that's a woman," because they have all the weighted characteristics, every last one of them. They shave their legs, shave blah blah blah, all the things, wearing a dress and all that, got their hair long. Yeah, Finster. If you look at Finster and you say that's a woman, you're still wrong. Like that, even though you can weight the characteristics as much as you want. You can weight the characteristics as much as you want. The only way you would be able to know that Finster is a guy is he would tell you. That's
Finster is a woman.
No.
Yeah, no. This is why I say you're not a progressive.
So again, if words mean what everybody uses them to mean, everybody would point at Finster.
And now you're doing the definition thing instead of what's the truth. Yes.
No, that is. Hold on. Okay, Katee, how do we come to understand what words mean?
Tom?
No, you can't keep running circles around this, because when you say the truth, there is no truth. These are social constructs.
Yes, Tom.
Yo, Tom been watching so much Full Metal Alchemist, bro. Like, there is no truth.
In case anybody's wondering.
Yeah.
No, I agree that there is no truth and all the things are social constructs. I just think it's ridiculous that we said that we're not talking about how people conceptualize something. We're talking about actual categories that exist in reality. So why are you now bringing up what would people say?
I said that if you ask somebody to define woman, they would say an adult human female. But when it comes time for them to actually engage with what a woman is, point at somebody, say that is a woman, they are going to use femininity. They are not going to look for chromosomes. They're not going to look for any biological markers like their definition says they will. They actually engage with femininity. And so that is the social construct. The social construct is...
Just if I can throw that in there, he's actually, I think, right, is that as the people identifying someone else, we use these stereotypes of femininity and masculinity, but for the person itself. And I disagree that Finster is actually a woman, because they present so much as so, because they still state that they are a male. So within this whole gender ideology system that we've created now, there's still a guy who presents fully female and is dressed within complete feminine stereotypes, but it's still... to someone walking by, if you don't know this online figure and you're not like in the Twitch space and shit, you just be like, oh, that chick's kind of cute, and then you go about your day not realizing that you misgendered him, because technically he doesn't identify as such, but he's presenting as a woman.
You realize that there's no utility for the concept of gender in that equation, because you're using his femininity to claim that he is woman-like, and if we're using his sex, then it's what you apply as gender. So gender in this equation both functions as sex and as femininity and masculinity. This is why this is
not in what I described.
Corrupt.
I may
not in what I described whatsoever. Yeah, no. What I'm describing is I'm saying that there are separate things. There is gender identity, that is the way that you identify, but then there is gender, meaning the way that other people will identify you.
How is separate from sex?
He didn't say
it's based on masculinity and femininity.
What I'm talking about. He in that definition that he just said, he didn't even use the word sex. So what are you looking for?
I'm not sure how we went back to that.
You said,
the reason
the way you identify and the way you expect and present yourself.
Tom divides gender to gender and gender identity. I don't know
gender
why
identity and
that
gender
when we have sex.
No. Yeah, he said gender identity and gender meaning. He said gender identity is the way you present yourself and think about yourself, and gender meaning is the way people will see you based upon the contextual definition that people have come to a conclusion, to a definition together.
Even a gender identity is going to be based on the definition of gender.
All I need to do.
No. Let me say this real quick. Despite the way you identify yourself, if you are perceived in a way that falls under a determined gender meaning by society, they will identify you as that, even against your own wishes. Is that include? No.
Femininity.
Question.
So
does
femininity,
masculinity. No, I'm not gonna go ahead and say it, and then I'm still asking the same question.
That's great. Femininity and masculinity are stuff that are performed. For example, many trans women might perform very feminine, but they're not going to pass anyway. So they're exhibiting a lot of femininity, but they're not going to pass. So people will still identify them by your definition of gender as man in a dress, man with shaved legs. Okay.
But they do that to protest it. They do that to protest it. Whereas, like, you can even watch somebody like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh have both slipped up where they're talking to somebody who does have a very square jaw, big muscles. They're like 6'5", and they keep using pronouns like she, her, woman on accident. And then they back up and correct themselves because naturally this is a feminine person. They're going to naturally engage with them like a woman, but they have to correct themselves because they want to protest what it is that they do naturally.
Okay. So
what is that? Where does sex fall in that?
I mean, let me ask you as tomfoolery.
There's no point to be remade.
No, hold up. Let me ask you as tomfoolery.
We already understand the point.
I'm gonna hit you with the legendary.
2 a.m.
No,
it is now.
Please shut up, please.
Answer the femboy question then. Like,
I refuse to shut up until you answer this question. Where does sex and biology fall in what Tom was talking about with gender meaning and gender identity?
Yeah, so Tom made up concepts like gender meaning. And what he means by that is just like the way... So normal people who have this discourse just say generally women generally look like this and men generally look like this. So there would be all kinds of physical characteristics like boobs, like the way someone dresses, maybe their voice, and then you'll say if they're a man or a woman. For example, a lot of Thai, they're not femboys, but like Thai, how do you call them?
Ladyboys?
Yeah, ladyboys.
The ladyboys, yeah, they'll look like females, right? And then they open their mouth and comes a very masculine voice out, and then you know they're not female, right? Yeah. So that happens. So the question is, what is the gender of this ladyboy? Tom will say their gender meaning is that they are a woman. He has to say that because that is consistent with what I'm saying. However, that is a really weird thing to add to the conversation because it is not, their sex is male, right? And I want there to either be sex and gender or sex and femininity, masculinity. Tom wants these two things to be together from whatever reason, even though gender in this concept doesn't provide any utility.
How did you come to that? And how did you come to that conclusion? In what particular part of his statements did you come to that conclusion?
Whenever I asked him what gender is or what masculinity and femininity is, he just says they are interchangeable. They're the same thing.
He's using it as like an expressive reality.
The
gender expression is what he's referring to when he's going to use pronouns for him to explain to another person.
Verbatim
hold on.
said,
Okay.
He verbatim said,
he's right there. He's right.
Yes, just let me explain it real quick.
So Tom, if you understand that,
listen, a man who we would overall conceptually look at as a man, he can have a purse, right? That purse is still a feminine characteristic for him, but he is still a man, right? Because he still fits the overall concept of a man. So just having some sort of feminine characteristic does not change the overall concept.
What is the concept?
So it seems, Tom, is it possible that you're using masculinity and femininity when you're supposed to say gender expression? Is that possible?
Kind of.
Well, no, that's what gender expression is masculinity and femininity. Yes. Every time you say, so listen, every time you say gender, you are saying masculinity and femininity. And so you say, well, what is masculinity
gender or gender expression?
Both. Gender is masculinity and femininity. Listen to me.
When he said gender identity,
hold on.
When he said gender meaning,
you do both.
Hold on, Azzy. Okay, gender means masculinity and femininity. So when you say gender expression, you are saying how are you expressing your masculinity or femininity? When you say gender identity, you are saying do you identify with masculinity or femininity? This is what these things mean.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. How does this work with people who are very men who are very feminine?
Yeah, so like on the spectrum, you'll have somebody like ladyboys or not ladyboys, sorry, femboys, like flamboyant gay men, like they will be closer towards the middle on the spectrum, like they've outlined, like they are going to be closer towards the middle than between like a femboy and I don't know what you call them, a mask girl, like, or a butch lesbian. Between them, you'll have like somebody who's androgynous or non-binary or like those sorts of things in the middle. But yes, or not. Well, no, tomboys are going to be farther onto the feminine side. But anyways, yes, they are all fitting onto the spectrum.
So wait, what's masculine about femboys? What's the masculine thing? I'm lost on that.
Well, so you tell me what is the difference between a femboy and a woman?
One identifies as a man and is probably a male. That's literally it. That's
but
actually
other people,
that's literally the only difference.
Yes, exactly. So there isn't a difference. When we're talking about presentation, there isn't going to be a difference. When we talk about the way other people identify you and the way that other people categorize you.
No. I just told you what the difference was. Now you want to say because I've said that difference, there isn't a difference. But there is a difference. I just told you what it was, and you just don't think that's a difference. But in reality, if I
didn't say that. I didn't say that, Kuro. Hold on. I didn't say that, Kuro. I didn't say that. Hold on. I didn't say that. You're talking about their identity. I'm talking about their presentation. We are separating the two. You are talking about their identity. I'm talking about their presentation.
But
so I'm saying for the
reason
presentation,
that we're talking about these things is because I'm trying to figure out what is a woman or a man in your eyes. Like what is gender to you? And I'm hearing you say, if someone is at the end of the feminine spectrum and they identify as a man, fuck them, they're a woman. Like if I bring
based on presentation, not their identity, those are two separate things.
He's not talking,
so here's the problem.
Disallowing their self.
I have a question.
Whatever. Go ahead.
I have a question. So Tom,
after Katie, I want to throw something out there.
Yeah.
So when you say gender, so there's like when you say gender, you're talking about gender expression on a feminine masculine like spectrum, right?
Yes, and that like each side of the spectrum we're going to categorize it as man and woman. Yes.
I think she froze.
No.
I think her Discord froze.
That's a bad freeze, bro. That's a real bad.
Yeah.
Well, it could be worse.
I'm glad you caught that. I thought she was mad for a second. I thought she was. I thought I broke her brain.
The rage was coming.
Dude, it would be amazing if she just started moving right now. She was like, "I'm just fucking with you."
Oh my god, if she got us all, that would be legendary.
That would be based as fuck if she could actually just hold that for that long. That freeze.
Never drinks caffeine in her life.
So, like a bunch of people, the other guy, he was just insanely bad faith. That guy was just so bad faith, bro. It was hurting me so bad.
You should have heard him earlier. He was
I was
just
listening.
on some, like, them
I was listening.
and they.
No, yeah, he was there the whole time.
He called you off-brand Tim Pool. I was like, yo, hold on.
Go, cause,
that was it for me. That was the line for me. So when I started hearing him call me like Tim Pool and then like all that crap, I was like, okay, this is like way too much. It's frustrating because like there's so many people where like I call myself a right-wing progressive, like most people are like, bro, you are not, like there's nothing right-wing about you. And I'll like start listing off things and they're like, yeah, you're just a freaking like progressive. Like that's not much different. There are some progressives that believe the thing is you, same thing as you. And then even when I said, I'm like, yeah, I identify as like a right-wing progressive just because it doesn't make sense. He's like, yeah, you're not saying anything, are you? You're not saying anything. You make no sense.
Right?
Like, yes, that's
for the most
kind
part.
No, you gotta hit him the other way. You gotta say, no, I'm a left-wing conservative. Gotta get him to think.
Why I could have gone with the freaking
back or not, because she hasn't like left.
Yeah, I feel like she probably would be coming back,
but
that her thing is probably still broken.
Either her computer froze or her Discord froze, and you gotta let Discord, like, she has to restart Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about going with the nationalist socialist, but that was
no, please.
Oh man,
might have been a little.
Just say progressive conservative, bro. It gets them every time.
If you go with that one, you'll get banned pretty
well.
Quickly.
So right wing, it would either be a right wing progressive or a left wing conservative. Like it's the
be stuck to cozy. All right, Jube,
just,
you want to ask something? Go for it.
Leftist Tea Party.
Yeah, it was like a slight, I guess, clarification, or in a way, I'm reinforcing what Tom's saying, but I need to like just pull my brain back 2 seconds. Forgive my 7 a.m. brain.
Here, can I? Oh,
yeah, no,
I think I understand.
I'll jog my mind real quick.
I think okay, I guess what I think is happening is there's like this fight that's happening over the word gender itself when Tom is talking about gender expression and the rest of us are talking about that mixed with gender identity. Because like it seems like Katee is using the word gender to mean gender identity and you're using it more to mean gender expression, and I think these are both parts of the same whole. That's why I keep like hitting you with.
I'm saying that they are like they're separate things, but like 99% of the time they will align. Like gender identity means that you identify with femininity or masculinity, and that's going to show in your presentation. There's a very like small 0.5% time where they don't align in any way.
For sure, but like where you're gonna run into a lot of trouble is like when I ask the things, or when people ask you things. I'm gonna use me. When I ask things like, well, how do you come to find out what a man or what a woman is? And you say like, oh, it's they identify with femininity or they identify with masculinity. I'm always going to throw the femboy thing out there because a femboy does not identify with masculinity. They just are like, they just say like, yeah, I'm a man, but like I do a bunch of feminine shit. So like,
this is why I
would say like
the identity from the presentation is because I'm willing to accept that there are some identities that don't align with the presentation, and it's good to separate them because they are they are literally separate things. Like the way that me identifying as a Falcons fan doesn't mean that necessarily everybody else will call me a Falcons fan.
You're
but I am
it's like
about myself when I call myself that, right?
It's like when black parents have to tell black children, especially black boys, that people will see you as aggressive, as a threat, and you have to present in a way that makes them think otherwise, even though those black children identify as
grew up on anime
and him, the world sees them as something else. So we have to move accordingly so that we can progress and live comfortably in society. There's an understanding that you have an expectation and presentation and perception of yourself, when other people have a expectation and perception of you, and you have to couple that.
Yeah, this is some like difficult shit for me to like think about. It's like how much do we put weight on like how someone identifies as opposed to how they're identified?
Okay,
Oh,
but
welcome back.
See how?
Okay, let's go. Hold on, Jube was gonna give his take. Let's get back to Jube.
To what Tom was saying, that I think it's one of those things of functionality, right? And it's like, I agree that your identity of yourself is effectively what your identity is, but there's some degree where it's like, that's a conversation between me and the mirror, and like, it doesn't matter if I'm like a super clean cut guy and blah blah blah. If I walk outside looking like this, everyone's gonna think this guy does drugs, he's a fucking hippie, it's blah 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 blah. It's like, some amount of your identity is the perception of others on you versus like your internal monologue between you and the mirror, where you're like, this is who I am, I know I'm this person, I feel like I'm this person, whatever this body does or doesn't line up with whatever gender you fall into. And the other half of it is basically that I think it's like, gender is literally just the umbrella term to attach the duality of masculine and femininity, which is the spectrum of like male and female behavior, and then gender identity is literally downstream of the concept of gender, attaching this internal, like I said, between you and the mirror. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. It's just, you when you look into your own eyes,
exactly,
or whatever.
Exactly. Like, so when we talk about the word ident, right? We're talking about identify or identity. Ident means in close relation to. I am saying I feel like I am in close relation to a woman, or I am in close relation to a man. When I talk about my own identity, I am talking about the way that I associate myself with another category or with another concept. And this is the way that I picture myself and what I feel like I closely align with. But if I keep telling everybody I'm a Falcons fan, I love the Falcons, everybody knows that I identify as a Falcons fan. And then you come into my house and there's like a bunch of posters that say Falcons suck, let's go Patriots. You're going to be like, bro, you're not a freaking Falcons fan. I don't care if you identify as a Falcons fan. I'm not calling you a Falcons fan because you don't fit what I conceptualize a Falcons fan to be.
And you cannot
being a hobby.
You cannot move.
Like,
you cannot move.
Perception.
You remember?
Go for it.
You remember Dave's presentation? It's you cannot move from one end of the spectrum of male to the other extreme expression of female, or masculine and feminine. Let me use the right words. You cannot move from one end of the spectrum of masculine to the other end of the spectrum of feminine without transitioning. If you do not transition,
right,
you cannot move to the other side of the spectrum.
So, once
no matter how far you
to pure pink,
if you pass that bar of androgyny and neutrality, then you have transition.
Yes. That is what transitioning is. Yes.
And then society will identify you as,
we solved transness, guys.
Masculine.
Sorry.
Perfect.
All right, Katee.
We did it.
And then transition successfully.
So here's the thing. I still think that Kuro is the most misogynistic, because I think what he said is deeply more offensive. But this is a close second. Measuring womanhood or manhood by like a masculinity and a femininity framework is quite awful for both genders, I think.
I want to correct something, because I agree with you before you go on.
Of course you do. Sorry.
So I hold on just real quick. The I want to be clear. So in the way that I write this up in my document is that there isn't we're not saying that you are more or less of a woman based on having more or less feminine characteristics. We categorize one side of the spectrum as woman because that is the way that we conceptualize it. It is just woman. We don't consider you to be more or less of a woman ever. You can have more or less feminine characteristics or be more or less feminine, but having more or less feminine characteristics does not ever make you more or less of a woman. Just the same as having more or less masculine characteristics does never make you more or less of a man.
Tom,
we just categorize that side of the spectrum as man.
You say that, but then you say that if your gender expression is so people identify you as a certain gender, then you are essentially not if you're a woman that doesn't have enough womanly traits and your gender expression according to other people is not feminine enough in your perspective, then she'll be a man in your perspective.
No, not in my perspective. I'm saying that this is the way we conceptualize what a man is and the way that we categorize it and the way that we use words like man and woman, feminine and masculine. Yes.
Okay, so I agree that if you see a man on the street, they are a man to you. And then if you treat them and they have a feminine voice and they tell you, I'm a woman actually, that's when you realize that they weren't a man and you were wrong, but you made an assumption that works on a general scale.
No. Again, that's different.
Oh my God.
No. Again, their identity is different than their presentation. You are not wrong on their presentation. Yeah. Like you're saying that, like,
you cannot both say you stopped me to correct me that having less or more like traits doesn't make you less of a woman. So if I'm a woman, so you're telling me that if I don't have enough feminine traits and people perceive me as a man, I am, for all intents and purposes, a man outside of my personal identification.
What I said is that you are never more or less of a man or more or less of a woman. You are either man or woman. That's what I said. Is that so? Yes. So if you present as a man, we would categorize you as a man. If you present as a woman, we would categorize you as a woman. But if you come up and say, well, I actually identify as X, we would generally identify you as X, just for like in practice. But that doesn't mean that that's the way we conceptualize it. These are separate things. You have to be able to categorize things separately.
And this doesn't mean people won't make mistakes.
Very transphobic, for sure. This is
I think you're transphobic. I think what you're saying is transphobic.
I'm sure you do, but you also think non-binary is just like
throwing that out there. Like I think I'm not a misogynist.
I didn't call you a misogynist. I said that you have like a framework that is misogynistic.
Every trans person I know believes that gender abolition is transphobic, and they all agree with my document and the spectrum and the way that I categorize these things. I don't know a trans person except for Demon Mama who agrees with what you're saying.
The fact that
I know a ton of cis people who agree with you, but I don't know any trans people who agree with you except for Demon Mama.
And this is the root of the misconception. Because you don't care about what Tom is saying, you keep essentializing what he's saying as he's saying because of what he's saying.
So, Azzy, I'm not doing any of that. Please stop.
Yes, you are, because you literally said before that he is interchanging
sex. So here's the thing. He's interchanging. Here's the thing, right? So here's the thing, right? So here's the thing, right?
Did you not say that, Katee?
So here's the thing, right?
Katee, you can do this.
So here's the thing, right?
You want, but you are caught.
So here's the thing, right? So here's the thing, right?
Here's what thing, Katee? What's
so here's the thing, right?
Of not dealing with what you did.
So here's the thing, right?
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So, I think, like as I said, measuring womanhood and manhood on a femininity and a masculinity spectrum is well, that's not the transphobic part, but that's like something that feminism is very, at least part of the feminism that I'm a part of, is very much not very happy with, because
just explain the transphobic part.
Yeah, you're getting prescriptive. So why, like we're talking about the descriptive reality.
You know what? I won't talk because you can't let me finish a sentence.
Because you're saying a lot of sentences that are filler. And we don't know what you're trying to get at.
Azzy, I let Tom talk endlessly when he interrupts me every single time. I think I'm allowed.
I keep telling Tom to be quiet because he's repeating himself, and you still keep saying that he is interchanging biology with gender. So no matter how much Tom talks, you are still going to hold your perception.
No, Tom does not. Tom is not doing that, actually. Tom acknowledges sex, and then he claims that gender is just about how you are perceived by other people, which is funny, because that's not how we talk about, because that's not how.
So he's no longer. He's no longer
society. When you say we, you mean random people on the internet. You don't mean like society. When I say we, I'm talking about society. I'm talking about like how we come to colloquial definitions of words. I'm talking about understandings of these things.
To be fair, Tom, when you say we, you also mean random people that are online. Like, no one's really talking about society here. We're all in insular little bubbles on the internet.
No. Because I'm using the same definitions that Webster's giving. I'm using the same definitions as the internet. Yeah, they are not.
Exactly. You are detracting from what Tom is saying. Tom has literally gave us
from what Tom is saying.
Yes. Yes.
How so?
Because Tom has given
I haven't changed his definition at all. I'm just saying, like, you're acting like he's saying like, oh, I got my squad with me, but it's like, no, bro, like you got some rules on the internet.
Tom did not give us the random man's definition. He gave us the definitions he found that are official, and he sent them to Katee. And I even found them on my own just by typing in masculine and gender.
Okay, but official by who? Because remember, Tom does not believe in definitional authorities.
I do. I believe in a process. Yes. This is the thing. Hold on. Because this is the confusion that people have, is that like they think that because I say sometimes that words are subjective, that means that they can mean anything. They can't mean anything. They are subjective, but there is a process to come to what that word means. The process is the same all the time, every time, no matter what. The words only change based on context. So it is a process that we will use to come to a definition. I use the same process. The dictionaries use the same process. We are all using the same process.
Exactly. So
okay,
when you
hold up. No, wait, time out. You not gonna call me bad faith, motherfucker. You never gonna do that ever at all, ever again. Because I'm no. I'm allowed to disagree with somebody forever, and you never gonna call me bad faith again. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you this whole time, and you gonna call me bad faith. That's not ever happening again. You understand? Okay. I'm glad you understand. Go ahead. Continue.
I understand, but when you say stuff like that, those are inherent bad faith.
There's nothing that is inherently bad faith.
We hate that word. We don't We don't use that word here.
Yeah, look at you. What's goofy at? Like, don't play with me, boy. Like, I never, ever at all, ever call me bad faith. I am the most good faith.
Okay,
I may not understand what you mean. Don't call me bad faith.
Bro, I'm gonna call you out on your BS, because when he gives you the academic way of coming to conclusions in language and then gives you academic definitions, and then you say, well, you're including the regular man's definition. You are detracting from what he's saying.
Okay, and now I'm gonna ask you: were you here for the gaslighting question? Were you here for the gaslighting stone? Okay, and when I said there is an authority that speaks on this, he said, well, but other people use it a different way, so now the majority is not using it wrong. He does not believe. That means no. Don't just K. That means there's an authority, and while people are trying to reference that authority, they're using it wrong. But he does not believe that a majority of people can use the word wrong.
You don't have forgiveness in your heart because you're going into something that
forgive nobody. We just disagree. Ain't no forgiveness. We just disagree.
Okay, so I'm saying that is the same. That we would still use the same process, and the majority would be part of the process. Like how the majority of people use a word, that is part of the process to coming to a colloquial definition.
The only thing is, when you're using a clinical term, it's defined in a medical setting.
Yes, and that's why it only changes based on the context. The medical term will change based on the context. So if you're using it in a colloquial context versus the medical context, the definition will change. This is why I say that the words do not change unless it's changing, the context is changing. Sorry.
It matters what context you're using the word in. Exactly. That's what I was trying to get to. Because if you're using it in a medical context, like as a professional, then you have to use the DSM-5 term. Like that meaning of it. But if it's us using the term gaslight in conversation, it could just mean I'm trying to trick you into thinking the way I'm thinking by telling you you're right.
Yeah, but when you say that, you are trying to reference the DSM-5 term. You're just not using it right. That's what I'm saying. But a majority of people use it the wrong way. And that's what I'm saying. People can bastardize terms like these. Thank you. Actually, that's a great word. People can bastardize terms like this, but like,
we knew that.
Like that doesn't mean that the majority of people are now correct. That makes the majority of people incorrect. And so I'm saying, like, if you want
no, they are incorrect in the medical context, but they aren't incorrect.
They're trying to use the medical context.
But the fact that
they're trying to use that word.
The fact that everybody understands what they mean, they're using it correct.
Correct. I don't believe that's the case.
Yo, here's a slight side example for this.
That's the social that is social context by definition. If everybody agrees to it, then the social construct has been formed.
The entire purpose of language is to express what you're saying. So if it's easier to use a colloquialism, than to use the medical definition, as long as everybody understands what you're saying, you're not wrong. That's the entire point of language.
Yeah, I can agree with. Hold on, let me get the name right real quick.
It's Kuro. K-U-R-O.
Sorry. Yeah. Forgive me. Fucking with the V there, you played me. But Kuro,
yeah.
It's like it's one of those things where it's technically incorrect in the sense that it is not the official and it's not the scientific. It is not a professional usage of the word by any means. It's definitely, like I said, a bastardization. But it's like when you call something cancer, like, oh, this bitch is being fucking cancer. Like, just listening to them talk, it's just to say they're so annoying. It's frustrating me to the point where I would like get a stress-induced tumor because you're so. But you're not actually having cancer. It's kind of like I'm communicating a concept. It's basically frustration and annoyance, and I've taken a concept that is like a real fucking thing, but everyone gets what you mean by it.
I need to ask a question.
A decent example or whatever, but you get the point. Go for it, Katee.
Is gender consistent, or do we recognize that under your definition, it's completely malleable and changes rapidly?
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So gender as you describe it, which is just like gender expression, and what you mean by gender expression,
it's not just gender expression. Again,
it's not just gender expression anymore.
No, it never was. Gender expression is separate from gender identity. So each time you say gender identity is gender, I keep saying no, that's gender identity. We're separating gender identity and gender expression.
Yes. Now, when I say gender, I just mean gender expression, because you're completely dismissive of any like weight that gender identity has. So like, I don't want to.
True.
Well, no, I think he's just separating them, right? To say that like, one of them is the internal narrative versus one is the like stereotypes of masculine or male or female behaviors that get categorized into the just stereotypes.
Yes, so we're talking about
male or female behaviors. He's talking about femininity and masculinity. This is
right, but femininity and masculinity are based on male and female behaviors.
I thought they were based on gender.
Oh my goodness, this is going to try. Masculinity and femininity. Masculinity and femininity are male and female behaviors.
You just need another word.
So do we now agree that you're tying it into biology or no?
No.
Okay. Because there are male and female behaviors or things that are not biological. And I still need like one example of like
carrying a purse. Carrying a purse is not biological.
It's like a correlation, not causation thing, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, I've given the same example over and over. Carrying a purse is not biological. Yet it is considered feminine because women or females are more likely to do it.
Okay. Because females are more likely to do it.
Yeah, it's a socially constructed gender
those females might either be like have a gender of a woman or might not, depending on their gender expression.
A man might even carry a purse. That doesn't change that a purse.
That's not what I said.
Right, but I'm going to another extreme to say that even a man can carry a purse and it won't change like his overall expression just because he has one feminine characteristic.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
So when I shaved my head and wore a bunch of baggy clothes when I was 18, and for a period of 2 weeks, every person that saw me addressed me as a guy, was I a man?
You had a masculine or your gender presentation was masculine or a man, yes.
So I was a man.
And your presentation was as a man.
Presenting like men, not necessarily that you were being a man or even
You didn't
presenting as a
transition
man,
it,
but you
man.
were
Right. So
you were wearing
like, hold on,
male attire.
Katie,
or-
you keep trying to do this thing where there is this like this objective thing that is man or woman, and that just does not exist in reality. Like it is only going to be based on your presentation or your identity. There is not the objective man or the objective woman. That does not exist. There is just presentation and identity.
Yeah, Tom, I agree. I think that my point is that since it's very clear that I'm both female and a woman, the fact that people perceive me as a man for 2 weeks or however long,
And that means it's not very clear.
What?
You just said it was very clear that you're a woman, but now you're saying everybody perceived you as a man, so it was not very clear.
When I say it's very clear, I mean.
Oh no.
Okay. I gotta head out now. I was gonna leave the last time, but I've waited. I can't.
I appreciate
just
you
say
sticking around, Tom.
Just say when she comes back to say that people are allowed to make mistakes, but that doesn't mean that you have now objectively become a man.
It wouldn't even be a mistake if your presentation is masculine, then people will just call you a man. Again, there is like the mistake is on the identity, but they're not guessing your identity. They are categorizing your presentation.
So like to you, there is no being. Like that's not a thing. You're not being. That's not possible, right?
You are not man or woman.
Yeah, like you can't be. You
right.
can only there's only the thing that you. Oh, okay, I understand where you're coming from now. This is where I personally disagree. I think there is like some underlying like being that you can do, but like if that's how you feel, I get where you're coming from now.
So if I was going to like place weight on it, I would say that the weight is going to be mostly on the identity, because the identity is what informs your presentation. And so the identity is always going to be the most important thing. And I do think there might even be a fact of the matter when it comes to an identity after being socialized a certain way, after growing up with certain norms and like appreciating different characteristics. Once you're an adult, you've gone through puberty. I think there's a fact of the matter of who you are as a person and what you identify with, and that is going to be blatant in your presentation.
Mm-hmm. So they can mistake your identity based upon your presentation and gender expression.
I mean, I'm then gonna just roll back to okay. Well, then what about femboys? Like, what happens when?
Femboys are within that gender neutrality that can be mistaken.
A femboy is not gender neutral. That's not gender neutral. That's not what we call that. Okay, look at Finster and tell me that's gender neutral.
Can femboys be mistaken for females?
Yeah.
Or women?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they're making a mistake on their identity unless the femboy identifies as female or feminine or woman, whatever word.
Yeah, so again, this is why we separate the identity from the presentation. A femboy is generally somebody who identifies as a man but presents as a woman. And so this is why separating the two is very important, is because femboys are going to be, like I said, like they're like less than 0.5% of the population. So overall, the way that we conceptualize these things are going to be consistent across the board. And then there's going to be this like small 0.2% of the population where it's going to get a little gray and dicey, but for like 99.9% of everybody, this is generally how we interact with people.
Mistakes are allowed because in order for us to move forward, we have to give grace to people who are making the mistake based upon your expression.
I wouldn't even call it a mistake. They're just separate things. One's an identity.
If they're mistaking your identity for something that you don't identify as, it's based upon your expression or based upon how they see you, based upon your presentation, then
I think Tom thinks categorization happens from the outside, so it wouldn't really be a mistake if you categorize it from the outside.
And it's not them being transphobic; it's just them making a mistake based upon your presentation or based upon how deep your voice sounds or how high your voice sounds. They're making a mistake. Voice is an expression of your identity as well.
Look, I'll say that.
Not really.
If possible.
Yes, it is. That's why people change their voice or change their vocal expression.
Yeah, but you can change your voice, and I could still be a man. Like, it wouldn't really make a difference.
But the point of them making their voice sound higher or more feminine is to present themselves as more feminine. So
right,
they're.
I gotta go.
Take
Love
care,
you guys.
Thanks
Have a
for
good night.
stopping back on my stream.
Hey, and you're not an off-brand Tim Pool. You're not an off-brand Tim Pool. Don't ever let anybody call you that.
That was nonsense.
That was wild.
That kind of triggered me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was like, yo,
there's a touch of toxicity in that little moment within the night. It was like,
At that moment,
getting a little salty for no reason.
I
For
had
someone
to
who's
jump
never
in
met
and
this guy before, he doesn't
say
like him very
something.
much. So I go for it.
Yeah,
If people, yeah,
Sorry, you're good.
people make mistakes. It's not transphobia. It's just
I mean, like, I'm
the social.
I'm not big into the trans conversation because I think we need to figure out what like the whole man and woman paradigm is before we even like move on to that. If I'm being real,
that was the original intention, and then it got
That's kinda
co-opted.
what we were saying before, actually. Yeah, it's like we can't move to step 2 if we don't have step 1 understood. And it's like, again, transitioning from what to what if those 2 categories are misunderstood. I'm going to try if possible. Also, welcome back, Katie. I'm going to try if possible to just like lay out a thought that I kind of like left on the back burner, which in a way is like partial Steelman or just like further articulation of what Tom was saying. But also, I should disappear in a sec because it's like fucking 7:40 in the morning.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
yeah, probably have to
Oof. Oh, man. So I think the thing is that at least I'm assuming this is his perception because what I was gathering from it, and in a way it might be my own, but whatever. I'll just try and think it out loud and stop rambling the preamble bullshit. There's sex, which is obviously the biological basis that we're starting with, and then there's gender, which is like the generalizations and stereotypes of archetypes or whatever the fuck of the 2 sexes and how they act and behave in society, and then how they are socially constructed, meaning what clothes are they choosing, what like the way that they're presenting themselves, right? And where we are now, there's sex, there's gender itself, then there's gender identity, which is like a personal self-perception inner monologue thing, gender expression, which is how other people are able to identify you. And I think if we're going to say that, unlike in the 90s where we correlated with absolute causation, that if you're a male, you're a man, and it's just an age difference, it's not a state of it. The state of mind was the maturity of are you an infant or are you an adult? That's what makes you a man, is like someone who could take care of the family and fucking be reliable and show up to work on time. It's like basically mature boy, now adult male, who can be accountable for things and deserves voting rights. It was very just basic fucking ABCDE. And so now if gender identity is a state of mind that is kind of this illusory, like it's this ethereal, it's just you can't understand someone's state of mind without having them express it to you in some way directly. If not, like you can see they're distressed or they're crying or they verbalize it in some way. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if we are simply identifying people by their presentation because that's all we have to work off of, we're not misgendering them if actually their inner monologue doesn't line up to the way that they're presenting based on the social stereotypes that they know that they're embodying to pass as such, fucking whichever side of it. It's like, no, I'm identifying you as what you present as, and I'm not telling you what your internal state is, because that's not something in the current dynamic of where we're at, where without just assuming the obvious, like sex gender connection, you just can't assume, or you can't be certain of someone's mental state. So it almost becomes functionally pointless to try and identify someone's actual identity. All you can do is say, I see what I'm seeing and I perceive it as this. And then if you actually get to know the person, be like, oh, what's your name? Oh, and you want me to know this other detail, which is that you might look like a woman, but actually you have a penis, identify as a man, and I need to be aware that you're a femboy, for example. But it's, what I'm trying to say is that it's like, Tom in a way is right, that your identity is what people identify you as, whether how I feel in the mirror, like, no, I'm not a sexist, no, I'm not a homophobe, no, I'm not whatever. But if I say certain things that people take a certain way, they're going to be,
you're good.
Oh, no worries about the internet thing, Katie. So I was just reading that on the side. And, but yeah, anyway, so like in a way, I know I'm kind of rambling, but I think there's just the multiple pillars of, there's the sex, there's the gender, there's gender identity and gender expression, and the stereotypes that inform all of those things. But at this point, yeah, like Finster, whatever it is, it's like at this point, if people are able to present so convincingly as the opposite sex, we can no longer identify anyone's identity, like gender identity, meaning we can no longer assume anyone's internal monologue, because it's just like the Mr. Girl shit, like, this is what you think and I'm going to tell you blah blah blah. It's like you can't know that shit until the person lets you know that shit. And what they're doing by presenting a certain way is trying to inform you. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to keep rambling through this, but it's like, essentially, if I dress like quote unquote as a woman, go to the women's, and like Katee mentioned earlier, having short hair, wearing baggy clothes. When I was 15, grew my hair long because I liked Led Zeppelin, bought women's pants from the women's section, size 4 with flares, because I wanted that 70s look. And then people would walk up, slap my ass, and be like, "Oh, you a fucking girl," or like, "Oh, I didn't know your dad had a daughter." It's like, bro, okay,
I was emo.
get it, because
I know.
yeah, there you go. There's gonna be all sorts of like that teenage.
100%.
Yeah, and that's classic.
It is misguided to only see gender expression on the spectrum of femininity and masculinity. That's like the issue. That is a bad metric. So like, here's the thing, and Tom tried to weasel out of it. So I was gonna tell him I haven't shaved my legs in like a month. I'm very hairy right now. Okay, by like standard metrics, that makes me less feminine. So I was gonna ask Tom. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When Tom says that it's not biological to carry a purse, but it's something females do, it's not explaining. How do I explain this? You know what? You continue. I need a second to like regulate.
It's pretty.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm pissed.